So as of recording this video this week, the NASCAR Cup Series, Xfinity Series, and Truck Series is all going to Talladega Superspeedway for some playoff racing. And right now, as we're talking about it, Hurricane Ian has been shown to more and more in the forecast affect what might happen this weekend as the chances of rain have been going up. And it got me thinking, while this one might not be a crazy one, it seems like at the very worst they'd be able to get this race in on a Monday. What happens if NASCAR has a race canceled? Well, I've thought about this for a while, as the Daytona Summer Race is effectively every year threatened by hurricane season, as it is in the peak of hurricane season on the weekend it's at right now. So what happens? What happens if a NASCAR race is canceled? And it's not just canceled for a day, but maybe over a week. Well, I think it's situational. Let's look back right now at some precedent for this kind of conversation. First off, you have the normal rainout postponements. Many times if there's a rainout on a Sunday afternoon race, the race either ensues on the Sunday night of that same day or the next day on a Monday. Most of the time it's on the same channel, though sometimes it might be moved to the cable affiliate of the network it's on, but other than that, it's pretty normal. And rainouts have become a semi-normal thing in NASCAR really since its beginning. But there's also some that are a little more rare. When you look at the last 20 or so years, there's 3 instances that really stand out to me as oddball occurrences for rainouts or just one-day postponements. Starting off, you have Michigan in 2007. I remember this race because for 2.5 days, I sat as a kid in front of the TV waiting for some kind of good update, only to hear that it got postponed to later and later and later because the cloud wall fell or because it was constantly raining at Michigan. Ultimately, they got the race off on a Tuesday afternoon, and with that, you saw basically a normal Michigan race. Everyone just wanted to get out of there, especially with Bristol that next Saturday. Then you fast forward 4 years. Nearly 4 years to the day, honestly. And you have Atlanta in 2011. Now, many of you remember Atlanta in 2011 as Jeff Gordon's win that got him to 3rd on NASCAR's all-time wins list after an incredible battle with Jimmy Johnson. And many do remember that it was rained out, but many forget that it was raced on a Tuesday. I remember this one because I had to watch it after it was recorded because I had football practice and school that day. There was no way I was able to watch it. And that, again, is something that's not normal, but has happened multiple times. Then you have stuff that's absolutely insane, like Texas in 2020, where the opening 55 to 60 laps were run, and then doo-doo just missed. Enough mist that made the track so wet that they couldn't race on it. Well, the race was postponed from that Sunday evening all the way to a Wednesday night. And that in and of itself is absolutely insane. But as long as there's an ability to race during the week of the race, NASCAR is going to get that race in. So in those instances, that's what happens. Now, there's been other more extreme cancellations in the last few decades and even in the last couple years that offer a bit of precedent to show what NASCAR would do in many other situations. First off, in 2020, there's a COVID pandemic. From the 5th race of the season all the way to the All-Star Weekend in 2020, NASCAR, along with the rest of the civilized world, basically just stopped in place. Due to many of the lockdowns and businesses being shut down, it meant that NASCAR had no way to function whatsoever. I mean, at the time, we didn't know anything about COVID, and it was just too dangerous at that moment to go out and actually have thousands of people at a racetrack running a race, even on a skeleton crew. So from March 15th to May 17th, there was no NASCAR whatsoever. Something, again, that's completely unprecedented for the sport when it comes to in the middle of the season having such a long break. So what NASCAR did was nothing short of amazing. NASCAR ran midweek races. Races on Wednesday nights, races on Tuesday nights, races on Thursday nights at tracks that they either not been able to run at earlier in the year on their official dates, or tracks that they were running at that week, similar to what they did with Charlotte and Darlington. Now with others, for instance, like Dover and Michigan that year, they ran double headers. So that helped as well. And NASCAR, with permission from the networks and those that own the track, like ISC and also SMI, were allowed to move people and tracks around the schedule. That way they were able to get them in no matter what. In the amount of time that NASCAR had originally planned to run 24 races, they ran 32 points-paying races plus the All-Star race. Basically, what I'm saying is that while it was unprecedented, NASCAR would do, and I still think will do, everything possible in their power to get every race in, no matter where they got to move it on the schedule due to postponement. Because running the race itself is key and paramount in getting the TV money they so desperately need to keep the sport running. Now, on another tragic note, September 11th terror attacks caused basically every sporting league to shut down operations for the week in order to help with relief efforts in New York. So the race that would have been run that ensuing weekend, New Hampshire Motor Speedway's race, was instead run at the end of the season as the season finale. So if a race is canceled too close to the end of the year, that might be expected to happen, is that, well, the race becomes the new season finale. But it is hard to predict that, seeing how they have a completely different points format, which really relies on dates having their individual dates run on that time. So it would be really odd, say, if, I don't know, Bristol got postponed, and then we had to move every race up for the rounds. It messed up the flow of the season, and then Bristol was the season finale in the middle of November. It would be really interesting to see how NASCAR would shift that now, just hopefully on somewhat better occurrences. And then in 1998, Daytona for the summer race had to be moved to October due to the Florida wildfires that year. And this actually was the first quote-unquote summer night race at Daytona. The Daytona race being moved to the first available weekend that the wildfires, hurricanes, and everything like that wouldn't affect it being run. And so they ran that. So if available, some races probably be moved to what currently is the only available off weekend, as it would be the only time that pretty much anyone in crews would be able to be called upon to run at a race that wasn't scheduled on a specific weekend. Basically, what I'm saying is all of this is situational. So here's what I think would happen based on precedent, as well as based on different things NASCAR said in the past, to what would be the most realistic plans for NASCAR and what would help them the most for what they can do. Starting off, you have the Daytona 500. NASCAR and Fox are going to do everything with all the power of heaven and earth to move to have this race run on a good time slot as the first race of the year. This race, when it comes to viewership, sets the tone of the season both for NASCAR as well as for Fox and NBC, and it's the most important race of the year no matter where it lines up with the championship format. So expect this one to maybe be run the next weekend if it ever got postponed longer than a couple days, and they just move the second race of the season around, which is not nearly as important. Also, for those that are on the Fox portion of the year after Daytona, I think they get moved to the off week between the Fox-NBC split off, where you see an opening in the weekend, like I said, that they can run any race at any time and not have to mess with any other dates. Now, another race that in and of itself is going to be an interesting one, an individual one, is the Chicago Street Course. And it's probably going to be replaced by an ISC track that isn't Daytona or Talladega. My guess would be Chicagoland Speedway, as if anything were to happen, that track is race ready at the moment and in nearby area and in the market. So it would just make sense for NASCAR to do that for at least a year and then see from that point on. For the rest of the regular season on the NBC portion, it'll probably be a midweek race before the playoffs and before Daytona, so they don't mess that kind of hype up for NBC and NASCAR. The Daytona regular season finale, I think if that one got rained out by a hurricane, it'd probably become the season finale because NBC is going to want to capitalize in any way possible for the biggest possible TV numbers on it. And I don't see them turning it into a round of 16 race. And for playoff races, well, they'd probably be done as soon as possible. only made the finale if they were absolutely needed to, and for some reason they couldn't be run for, 2 to 10 weeks. Basically, NASCAR is going to do everything in their power to get us all 38 race weekends in, so each situation probably will be a different reaction plan depending on what the networks say, what the playoff situation is, and what track ownership says. But that's all from me. Now I want to hear from you. What do you think would happen if a NASCAR race got canceled? Let me know down in the comments below. While you're at it, leave a like on this video, share this video, and subscribe to my channel for more great NASCAR content. And thank you so much to all my channel members for your continuous support. So until next time, have a good one.